What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the CPA Zone, the podcast where we discuss tax strategies and accounting tips for entrepreneurs and real estate investors. My name is Ryan Pulis, and our company, the Pulis Group, offers tax planning and advisory services for entrepreneurs like you. Whether it's bookkeeping, tax planning, or CFO services that you're looking for, we've got you covered. All right, what's up, everybody? Ryan Pulis here with another episode of the CPA Zone. Today, we have a special guest joining us, Asher. Asher works in the 179D space. If many of you remember 179D, we talked about on a previous episode. It's a deduction for energy efficient commercial buildings. Asher, if you want to introduce yourself, maybe let us know a bit about your background. Get started.
Sure. Thank you, Ryan, for having me on. Pumped up to be in the zone.
All right.
So, I work for a company called Credistry. We help both nonprofits and for-profit new construction take advantage of the 179D tax incentive. The 179D tax incentive has been around since 2006. Obama brought it in, but historically it was only $1.80 a square foot. 2023, Biden, through the Inflation Reduction Act, boosted it up to over $5 a square foot. So, it's funny. It's a funny deduction or incentive in that it has new parts to it, but it's been around for a long time. So some people might think like, oh, I know about that. It's not exciting. But they don't necessarily realize that it has been upgraded. I myself, before doing 179D, I focused on cost segregation. And 179D and cost segregation could sort of work together, actually. And I'd love to dive into it onto this on this episode on how that works.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So as Asher was saying, 179D has been around for a while. It wasn't heavily utilized until more recently with the Inflation Reduction Act. This thing really got juiced up. So now you could take $5 a square foot. So if you have a 100,000 square foot building, that's a $500,000 deduction year one. And specifically, what 179D does is it lets you take that property that's otherwise depreciable for interior lighting systems, HVAC and hot water systems, or parts of the building envelope, so things like your doors, windows, and insulation. And if they meet certain energy standards, then and your building qualifies, then you're going to take this deduction. And it's going to be the deductions equal to the lesser of your cost or that $5 a square foot. And obviously there's certain things you have to meet in order to take that full deduction, but pretty substantial if you can qualify.
Right. Practically speaking, it's almost with the cost of the material almost always outweighs the square footage. Right. So I won't even mention that because it's just always the case. You're going to have 100,000 square feet. So it's going to be $500,000, right? So 100,000 square foot building. Think about the foundation, the slab, the outer walls, the windows, the HVAC system. It's going to it's going to cost worth a lot more than $500,000. So
good point.
There's a lot of details in 179D that make it very abstract and complicated. And when I started with this, I used to give everybody the whole spiel. And I literally lost everyone like 4 minutes into the conversation because there's so many technicalities to it. Let's say hitting the energy standard, right? It's like almost everyone is hitting the energy standard. Any new building going up is going to qualify. The reason being is because the standard that it's measured against, right? It has to be 25 to 50% more efficient than the standard. So now what's standard? Right?
Yeah.
So the standard is based off of standard material used to build the same building in the year 2007.
Yeah.
Right. So we're talking about a really old model. In 2007, like iPod Touch, like just came out, the first version, like iPod video was like,
yeah, that's true.
So it's like technology has gone so far since then. We have like AI and like flying cars almost, not flying cars yet, but like, let's just say that, any material that you're buying in your local hardware store is outperforming the standard of 2007. So almost all new buildings going up are going to qualify. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, good deal. Now, another thing that's a bit new with 179D is you can certain governments, Indian tribes, nonprofits can allocate their deduction to architects and engineering firms that work on their buildings because they're not paying taxes, they're not taxpayers. So they could take the deduction that they would have qualified for and pass it on to the architects and engineers working on their buildings. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's super cool and it's really underrated.
Oh, shoot. Okay, we're back. We had a little disconnect there.
Yeah.
So we were just kind of getting into, you're saying it's kind of a bit underrated, this ability for governments to push the credit out to their architects and engineers.
Right. So the reason why it's such a powerful thing and why it is underrated is because when you come to a real estate developer, he's investing, he's putting money, he's taking out a loan and he's investing into this building, right?
Yeah.
So now a lot of that money gets locked up and you can't take it as losses, you know, they get put on timetables. So this allows him to take some of that up front, which is great, right? But you think about an architect who got paid to work on somebody else's project. The other person is investing in the property. He's getting paid to do the work. And now he gets rewarded on top of being paid a tax deduction that could literally offset his entire income for this year and forever potentially, right? Because a guy does work on a few school projects, a few hospitals, a few churches. He gets, 300, 400,000 square feet over the entire year, right? We're talking about millions of dollars worth of losses that he gets for free, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he'll have to pay the engineering firm to go ahead and do that. But all he needs is the nonprofit to give him, to say, you could take it. And then he's literally looking at not ever paying taxes because these suspend and they'll offset the next year and the next year. And on top of that, there's no recapture here because he doesn't own the property. So while this is great for a developer to take the depreciation up front when he sells the building, there's going to be depreciation recapture. By the nonprofit sector, the architects, the designers, the HVAC technicians, anyone involved in energy efficient design takes home this deduction, never has to worry about it again. So
that's a great point because traditionally 179D is going to be utilized by the building owner. So whoever owns it, they take the deduction later on down the road, they're going to have recapture to deal with. In the case where an architect or engineer is allocated the deduction from a nonprofit, they're never going to have that sale, that event down the road that triggers tax and depreciation recapture. So it's really just all good for them. They take the deduction, they're good to go.
Yeah, it's really insane. I don't think there is a better tax product out there than this. I mean, it's very specific. You can't get it.
Yeah.
You have to become a designer of nonprofit. So you can't just opt in and use this for your strategy. But if you are a designer, if you are an architect, HVAC technician, lighting design guy, even you have to be involved. Who else would be HVAC? Electric and plumbing could potentially get it as well. Interior designers could get it, right? Because even if your fundamental purpose is not to be energy efficient, but your design affects the energy efficiency, you could go ahead and take that.
Yeah, it is somewhat of a niche space, the nonprofits and government buildings. It's not like there's a ton of them out there for everyone, but if you're in it, that's fantastic. So it's a nice little trick to have up your sleeve there. So yeah, good deal.
But another thing I wanted to just mention, so the $5 a square foot. So one of the things that they included with that is the prevailing wage and apprenticeship.
Yes.
It's going to be needed on that in order to max that $5. So a lot for most of America, probably this just knocks out every deal, right? Because if you don't have prevailing wage and apprenticeship, which prevailing wage is county specific, you have to look up your county and see what the prevailing wage is. So then it ends up being $1 a square foot, right? So that's pretty lame, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But the interesting thing that our firm is focusing on is that if you started a project prior to the new rules, so you are grandfathered from the old rules into the new program. So the old rules, you did not need prevailing wage and apprenticeship, and it used to be $1.80 a square foot. So if you started construction before January 29th, 2023, and then you get CFO after that, you could get $5 a square foot without having the prevailing wage.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Now, I know at one point it was a bit difficult to find the apprenticeships for some places, but there was and I'll try to find the link and put it in the show notes, but there's a link you can go and apply. And if you were told that there were no apprenticeships available for what you're looking for, then that was good for, I think it was 120 days. And then you didn't have to worry about going and finding those apprentices. You had this denial letter to fall back on and say, okay,
Right.
so it's not like all is lost if they don't have someone out there. That letter is that kind of puts you in, says, yeah, you tried, so you get by, apply again in 120 days and you'll be all good.
Right. Right. So apprenticeship, there's that way you could get out of it. Like, you don't have a choice. You try, they're not going to hold it against you. So as long as you could prove that you actually did try, and such as getting denied and being told that I think it's waiting 48, sending in a request and not hearing back from them for 48 hours is also considered that you tried, or maybe it might be 7 days. I'm not exactly sure. Another thing is that if, let's say you have only 3 employees, so then you also don't need apprenticeship, right? It's only for companies that are 4 employees and more.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So if you're a smaller company,
yeah,
you don't have to deal with that.
So you could hire, a guy who's like him and his cousin, or him, installation, or you have some of these, kitchen renovation, whatever. You'll have smaller companies that you could go ahead and hire them and not have to worry about the apprenticeship.
Yep. Yeah. Good point. That's true. Do you guys help your clients with finding that information? Like if they came to you like, what does this mean?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll give them generic direction.
Yeah, sure.
On how to do it. But most of our focus is on people who already finished their projects and don't even know this exists.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay. Awesome.
Because at now, if people do contact me, and I have a lot of meetings with designers and with investors about 179D, but as soon as the prevailing wage comes up, it sort of shoots the whole thing dead.
Gotcha.
Because it's just like, I could barely afford to get this project off the ground with minimum wage. Now you're going to ask me to spend $10 to $15 more an hour per employee. I'm done, right? It's not going to make sense. So we'll never recommend anyone do prevailing wage just to get 179D, because it is a deduction. It's 30 cents on the dollar, in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you never chase a deal for tax incentives, right?
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to let the tax tail wag the dog, as they say. You should look at taxes as a way to maximize what you're earning and not do anything just for the tax benefits, because I see that come back to bite people all the time. It's, if you need to make a few minor adjustments to take advantage of a particular section of the tax code, but then by all means do it, but don't go chasing something that doesn't make sense. So,
right. Like if it's a question of 2 deals and this one, the same, and one has a tax incentive, so go for that one.
Yeah, exactly.
But to start looking, and that's the problem with 1031s that people get into. They end up taking bad deals because they don't want to pay the liability. So 1031s are great, but you got to, sometimes say, what, this deal is not worth it. I mean, it's painful to have to pay now, who knows how much in taxes. But, I'm sure you've had cases that have gone wrong. And I've heard from CPAs where their client has chased just a horrific deal because they didn't want to pay the capital gains, and the new deal lost them tenfold. But
exactly. I've definitely seen that.
Right. So,
and there's other things you can do.
Right. So I don't mean to get sidetracked off the point. Like,
exactly.
I don't say like, that's why our philosophy is, we'll help you maximize whatever, you could get, but we won't tell you do this. We won't tell you spend more money on get a more expensive HVAC because you'll get the deduction after you obviously have energy efficiency in mind, but it's got to make sense without this tax incentive. If it's there, we'll help you get it. If not, don't let it deter you from making money.
Absolutely. Definitely. So since you've been working in the 179D space, have you had any interesting or really cool stories for like with any particular clients you've worked with? Just something that just really kind of made you think like, man, this is a pretty good deal, even better than I realized. There's something like maybe completely opposite. Like, oh man, this is way harder than I expected. Just you've been in it now for what, little over a year or so.
Yeah.
Or
So the cool thing is speaking with the designers that are taking advantage of it. Like these people are
yeah,
literally not paying taxes for potentially the rest of their lives off
that's
of their
awesome.
business income. So it's just radical. At the developer side, I actually have put more energy on that side because the client is more sophisticated and easier to deal with.
Yeah,
But when you connect with an architect, when they truly understand it and their CPA, gives them the go ahead, because a lot of times they'll throw it to their CPA, and then there are times that CPAs are not necessarily up to date with it and don't
yeah,
understand it. And I've had CPAs nix deals
yeah,
um, for the clients, and I don't blame the client and the CPA. Not necessarily every CPA is researching every new tax incentive that's out there, and this is new-ish with the upgrades.
yep,
But those that get it, it's like a certain, like you told, there's just a certain carefreeness to like, yeah, they are never potentially, because they will continuously need to get nonprofit jobs. And even at $1 square foot, if you have enough square footage, right? So it's 200,000 square feet over a year. So they'll get a $200,000 deduction
yep,
instead of a million, right? So it's just insane.
yeah,
Um, another a place where it's been very helpful for developers has been where they don't necessarily have new developments. Let's say they did in 2016, 2017, or 2018, they put up a new build, and they haven't done much in real estate since then. So they might have cost segregated, right? So the way this fits in with cost segregation is a much cheaper option. And in a way, generally will get you more cash, more depreciation, different kinds of depreciation. They could work together. I would say 179D is more wholesome because, I don't want to get too nitty gritty, but basically with bonus depreciation, not every state accepts it.
yeah,
So you might have that add back income
yep,
if you have too many suspended losses. 179D, almost all states accept it. So therefore, it's going to work on the federal level and on the state level, which is cool. But generally speaking, cost segregation is going to get you a few million, where 179D is going to get you a couple 100,000, right?
yeah,
Especially like in Manhattan and these cities where it's small square footage and the buildings cost a ton, because cost segregation works off the purchase price versus here it's working off the square footage, right?
yep,
So it's always recommended to do a cost segregation first and 179D if needed, right?
yeah,
So what we'll have is a client that has a building that he developed in 2018, did a cost seg in 2018, but now it's already 2023, 2024. His depreciation has run out. So now we could go back to that building and juice it for 179D. It won't be $5 a square foot. It'll be $1.80, but it will be in case, our minimum would be 50,000 square feet. So, you're looking at close to $100,000 deduction
yeah.
when he might not have any other options. So that's been like a really cool way to squeeze some more juice out of these properties.
Awesome, awesome, good deal. Now, are you guys do you also assist on the cost seg side? So can you help them with the cost
Yes.
seg and then the 170? Okay, awesome. So
Yeah.
then they have one point of contact there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Good
we're
deal.
mostly focused on the 179D, but when a cost segregation makes sense to do, we'll definitely have the client do that instead.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. That's a good deal. If they can take advantage of both, that's fantastic.
Yeah, you gotta squeeze that, that
Yeah.
fruit for everything it's worth. You gotta get every write-off. You qualify
Yeah.
QIP, you do renovations, you gotta do that also. You
Yep.
gotta take advantage, because otherwise you're paying taxes, and that's horrible. No, I'm just kidding. It's not so bad to pay taxes, but it
Yeah,
can be
I mean, it's
painful.
still the less you can pay, the better. It's just
Exactly.
you need to do it right and
I don't want to sound anti-American, like,
yeah,
oh, you
yeah,
live here,
yeah. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Good deal. Have you had any just deals gone bad with this? Any like bad experiences dealing with the 179D?
So we've had people that didn't totally understand that it was a deduction. People will
Yeah.
think that it's a credit because you say $5 a square foot, and then you tell them it's a deduction, and for some reason they'll still go with that it's they'll seem to not understand, or maybe they did understand and they forget. But we'll have, where we give the deliverables and people will be like, so when am I getting the money? So you say, no, it was a deduction. So like,
Yeah.
it has to be, it's super emphasized, now on emails, I spell out cash value on the emails, it's going to be $100,000 deduction. That's a cash value of $30,000, assuming you are in a 30% tax bracket, which nobody really is, but, but that's just for a round number.
Yeah.
And you don't get the cash up front, you get it at the end. So it does happen that investors will think that it's something that it's not. So we try our best to communicate and make sure that they understand that. Awesome. And then there's times that people had too many losses, so they can't use it. It has to suspend, which is not really, it's not great because you don't get to use it this year, but it is always good to have an NOL, net operating loss, that's carrying over from year to year. So it's not like, oh, what was the point of it? No, it is good. It's not at the same value, but you do want to, my understanding is that you do want to have a high net operating loss that falls over from year to year.
Yeah, it's you don't lose it. So you're going to utilize that at some point and help use that to offset your income.
Right.
And I've run into the same issue going back to the deduction versus credit. A lot of people they think this is a tax credit versus a deduction, and really it's just a deduction. Whatever the 179D value is, you're going to reduce you take that full deduction year one and reduce your basis in that property that would have otherwise been depreciated over 39 years typically.
Right. And you know what? This happens even with charity. Like, people think that if you give $1 to charity, you save $1 in taxes.
Oh, yeah.
And like, nowhere does it say that you get a $1 credit for each donation, right? Literally, so why not just give your entire tax bill away to charity? And then you'll just pay money instead of to the government. You'll pay to your local, whatever, nonprofit you want to give to. It doesn't work that way. It's 30 cents on the dollar. And people don't get it. People have been giving money to charity with this assumption.
Yeah.
For decades, so.
Yep. Yeah. I've run into that myself. So
you never have to pay taxes ever. Yeah.
So what's a typical process like for one of your clients when they come to you guys to say, I'm interested in this 179D. You help explain it to me. What are the next steps? What's the report look like?
Right. Got it. So the first thing I'll ask for is when they got CFO, certificate of occupancy. When did they put that building in service? Because that is officially the year that you'll be able to take it. You could catch it up on a 3115 on the for-profit side. On the not-for-profit side, you would have to amend taxes if you're going to take it. So like, let's say now it's very late in the game to be doing a study for 2023 to get it in time for that extension. So if somebody is coming to us now with a project, what we'll probably end up doing is amending their 2023 tax return to do that, because you can't just take it into 2024. Right. For profit, you could do it there. So we got to get the CFO. Next question really is, when did you start? So now I don't really have to ask that, because we want to know the prevailing wage, whether or not you're going to need that. Most buildings that are getting CFO now started prior to 2023. So the process is basically, when did you get CFO? Okay, great. Send me the construction drawing set, right? You send over the construction drawing set. Our engineers scope the work. They scope the potential that's here, and they'll be able to see whether or not they are confident that a study will produce results for you, right? Because you got to commit to the study before we know the results, which could be a little scary, because you're signing a contract that you're going to pay us, because this study, right, will show how much tax incentives you get for it. And we can't know for sure until we do the study. But like I said, almost everything going in now is going to get at least 25%. And our engineers have a very good idea of what we'll get over 50%. And we do feel comfortable with certain projects guaranteeing a certain result.
Okay, so awesome.
We'll ask for the construction drawing set. The main things are the architectural drawings, MEP plans. We'll send a feasibility study to you, letting you know the potential profits. We'll try to guarantee where we feel that we can. And then from there, you make a decision. Doesn't make sense for you. And then that's it. If you say yes, we do the study. Usually takes 6 to 8 weeks to do. The study itself is remodeling the entire building on a 3D software approved by the IRS, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it literally you have engineers literally creating the structure on a computer program, brick by brick. So then after we have that building, we run energy simulation tests through it over the course of a year. It doesn't take us a year, but the simulation is
Gotcha.
what energy consumption would look like if given all the factors, winter, summer, whatever it is, whatever whatever, wherever you are in Florida, it's specific. You're going to be running the AC more in Florida than you are in New York. So we basically run that simulation through a year, and then we compare it to 2007 standard. So if it's 25% more efficient using less energy than the 2007 standard of this building, then you get, in the case of 5,000 square foot, you'll get 250 a square foot. And then with each percentage point higher until 50%, you get like another 36 cents per square foot. Basically 25% more efficient gets you the minimum. And then with each percentage point, you build up to $5 a square foot.
Yeah. I think because without the prevailing wage, I think it starts at 50 cents a square foot. And you add 2 cents per to get to $1. And then if you meet the prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements, that's times 5. You get the $5. And, yeah. Exactly. But yeah. Okay. Awesome. Good deal.
Yeah.
And then I guess they get the report. That's their support when they file their tax return, take the deduction. They've got this nice report that kind of details out. We've got the energy savings. The report was run through the software you mentioned that the IRS requires is be used to prove the energy savings. So good deal. Any I guess advice you would have for potential people considering a 179D, and maybe they're not sure they qualify? Is that something they can call you up with and talk through?
Yeah, 100%. Anyone could call me. I'm glad to talk and run through it. Like you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, it's for commercial, right? It's not for residential. If it's residential, if it's 4 stories or more, then it would be. So like a multifamily that's 4 stories or more could get it. But basically any commercial build that you got CFO in the last couple of years, definitely worth looking into. At the end of the day, we're going to have to know what your tax liability is for the year for us to decide whether or not it makes sense for you. And that's not information that we necessarily have. That's for your accountant to see on their end, is there tax liability? Because if there is no tax liability, there's some value there. But generally we would recommend against it, holding off when you need it. Right. Yep. So if you have a tax liability, 17, and you developed a new commercial building, look into it. If you're a designer, definitely get on the phone with me, because, this is gold. This potentially could be gold for you for life. So like, I wouldn't even tell like any designer, whether you think you work for nonprofits, non-for-profits, it's worth getting on the phone and discussing and seeing like how you could potentially take advantage of it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Awesome. Good deal. All right. Well, I think we're running up on time. Any last thoughts or key takeaways you want to add? And maybe just put your info out there if anyone can get in touch with you.
Yeah. So I'll put my info out first while
I'll put it in the show notes too.
Oh yeah. So, so my name is Usher Fried. So my email is Usher, ASHER.F@credistry.com. My number is 917-626-1455. You can give me a call, send me a text, and connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter-ish, not really so active there, but I check it, especially, now it's getting crazy. But yeah. So let me just think if I could add, if there's anything I missed. I mean, I think I covered everything.
All right, good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we hit all the main points. It's a significant deduction that really can help out owners of commercial buildings or the architects and designers that are working on non-for-profit or government buildings. And it's all geared around energy savings. So
yeah, it's energy focused. I mean, a lot in regards to me, when I'm looped in now with a lot of energy companies that are focused on making the planet greener, right? Because this gets lumped in with that versus like cost segregation is like a hardcore cold-blooded tax tool for savvy real estate investors. This is more like of an energy savings, So You know, you can take advantage. I feel like on this episode, folks treated it like cost segregation,
Yep.
which I believe, you know, it should be, because at the end of the day, just because you could get it because you're saving the planet doesn't mean that you should take advantage of it. It has to make sense for you. But yeah, you'll see it advertised more as like with the green space, like as a Biden thing versus a Trump thing.
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Then that sounds good. I appreciate your time. It's been great talking to you. I have to do it again. And like I said, I'll put your contact info in the show notes and let you know when this is coming out.
Yeah, amazing.
Thanks again.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Ryan. Take care.
So that about does it for this episode of the CPA Zone. Thanks for listening, and I hope you found something valuable that you can take away. We are taking on new clients, and if you'd like to work with us, then go to our website and fill out the client intake form on our contact page. This can be found at thepulisgroup.com/contact. That's ThePulicegroup.com/contact.